Hey everyone, this is Jaxie, and welcome back to more Wargame Wednesday. Today we are continuing Ultimate General Gettysburg. We are playing the Day 1 scenario as the Union. So we finished the early morning as Buford, and we held on very nicely as First Corps came up. Now, though, we have nearly 20,000 men. The Confederates only have about 10,000, but they're going to get an extra 15,000. They're going to outnumber us by the time they show up, and they're going to have more guns. Now, luckily, we did the middle option, which was to have the hills south of Gettysburg. And you'll notice I'm still kind of holding on at the Lutheran Seminary, but most of my main line is away from that. And then I have Culps Hill there to the southeast. And Culps Hill is going to be huge. For those of you who are fans of the battle and know a lot about it, the Confederates failing to take Culps Hill is one of the major reasons that Day 2 and Day 3 play out how they do. It allows the Union to get into a really good defensive position, the famous kind of fishhook shape, and that also, the way the Union does the fishhook, they had interior lines. And what interior lines means is basically they could shuffle units back and forth with much smaller distances to go. Because the Confederates were attacking from the outside, they had to go all the way around if they wanted to withdraw units, move units, things like that. So, yeah, if we can hold Culps Hill, and I'm going to leave a good 3 brigades or so on the hill and just let them chill and sit there. I don't want to give it up. We'll be fine. My plan up here is to do a sort of fighting withdrawal, and I'm not super worried about that. I think if we have to pull back, we can pull back, but I want to make them work for it. Because we are the Union, we are the defensive party right now, there's only so much pressure. I'm going to let them come to me, I'm going to react, and if I have to pull back and cede 1 or 2 victory points, I will. Right now, the Confederates are putting a ton of artillery right up near my lines. In general, I don't mind that fight, though. Iron Brigade is a tiny bit exposed, but the Union usually has better cannons. So, like with Hall and Reynolds and Califf, it's really not a fight that the Confederates should be taking. The Iron Brigade, even if a few of those men are out there within the cannon range, Lane is going to have issues because I have the Woods there. I have Baxter if he needs to swing in. Paul is a reserve. I'm going to move up the Bucktail Brigade, but you might think I'm being a little cautious with how many reserves I have. But again, I'm playing it kind of like they did historically, that I'm going to use interior lines, I'm going to use a fighting withdrawal, and let them come to me, let them overcommit, and I just have to react and hold on, which is the Union's win condition. I just have to deal out more casualties and hold my points. And I think right now we're on the balanced AI, so they should probe, they should try to find where the weakest link is. They're not going to overcommit, but they also might not try anything crazy. So, not too worried. They're bringing in a lot of men, but you can see right now, I think they're going to try to attack the southwest. The Iron Brigade has kind of rebuffed them. They don't want any part of that. And honestly, I'm fine with it. If they want to do that, they can do that. I don't have a ton of men there with Buford, but I'm going to bring Ames up. And Seminary Ridge should be good. It's a really good position. Not only is it a ridge, but it's wooded, so it's got cover. It's got everything they need. And Scales, Davis, and Brockenborough, they are so beat up from the early morning scenario. You can see their flags are already white and flashing. Because the scenarios are persistent, even though they're like separate little instances in the game, what you do early on matters. And because I've played a pretty conservative defense, they're really going to have some issues knocking me off that and trying to move me out. Von Gilsa, I'm going to let him stay there for now. Heath skirmishers, if Schimmelpfennig can get in there and start firing, that's going to be fine. If not, let them try to take Culps Hill, if practical. And again, those of you who fans of the battle know that that was the order given by the Confederates, and it was viewed as not practical, so they didn't make enough of a push on the hill. And we'll see if it plays out a little differently in this game. Now, this scenario, they might have issues, but I've played rounds before where the Confederates actually do an evening attack just on Culps Hill. And that scenario is intense because very ahistorically, the Confederates recognize how big of a deal it is and they respond appropriately, and you are really holding on with not enough resources. It's an evening attack, so some of the units you use have been fighting all day and are pretty weakened, and it's really intense, it's really fun, and it gives the Confederates a chance to go against history and not end up having to do Devil's Den, having to do Little Round Top, and then having to do Pickett's Charge. And so here, they're really trying to get around me. I'm going to get some flank shots while they do. And I do want to deploy von Gilsa and some of my artillery because I think I can wheel around and keep up a pretty good defense. But if they're truly committing to the flank that much, I'm going to let them. Archer just has nothing left. He's getting hit by artillery. I've got 2 brigades there. I don't know what they can do about that. In this area, Davis is so weak. Scales is so weak. Brockenborough is weak. And it's real tough ground to attack through. Right now it's 2 o'clock in game time, and I think I only have to hold out till 3 or 4. The evening scenario is separate than the mid-afternoon scenario, so... Yeah, right here you can see the Iron Brigade is just tanking artillery. They're hunkered down. Even though Perrin outnumbers the Iron Brigade, he doesn't seem to want to attack. Pettigrew's up there just chilling. My guess is that they're trying to bring up some artillery or do something with artillery and then attack. But you can also notice there, Confederate artillery, a lot of it has fled. They tried to straight up duel my artillery, and the Union has an advantage there. The Confederates will always have an advantage in this game for close combat, and especially charges, and their brigades are bigger, so sometimes they're pretty good at firefights too. But Union artillery is always going to have the advantage. And so Hall and Califf and Cooper, Reynolds, they're just going to tear everything up there. So the northwest looks good. The southwest, Brockenborough is in cover, but it's basically 2 brigades against 1. Scales, I don't know. He's in a good position, but that's the beauty of being the Union. Scales can't just hold and hunker down on the ridge there. He has to attack and try to get my flank, and von Gilsa hopefully hurries up and blocks it. Also, it looks like I'm going to get Stannard, which is a pretty big brigade, and that's good. Most of the Confederates haven't shown up yet. There's really nothing threatening my east or threatening Culps Hill. It's a pretty relaxed situation right here. Scales is realizing he has to try to hit Coster's flank. I don't know, maybe they see von Gilsa coming up. And no, they're not going to totally get around me. Stannard, why don't you help von Gilsa? Von Gilsa just has to deploy here. He'll be at a disadvantage out in the fields against if Scales stays on that ridge, but there's nothing much I can do. I just have to have him face von Gilsa. I can't let Coster get flanked like that. And Perrin is still kind of holding. The AI might be waiting for their reinforcements, but he's holding within cannon range. Either he should bring down Pettigrew, I think it was, and do an attack on Paul and the Iron Brigade, or he should pull back. Yeah, Davis right there, he's in good cover, so even though he's going to take some artillery, it's going to be fine. Brockenborough, though, it's 2-on-1. And Scales is trying for a flank. I don't know, von Gilsa might get one shot on the flank before Scales turns. Maybe they think Johnson right there can break the Iron Brigade. I mean, they're taking some losses, but Reynolds is going to counter that, and I have other artillery coming in too. Yeah, look at that. One whole volley, and it was like 3 casualties. Rhodes maneuvers towards us from the northwest. Rhodes sends the rest of his forces, let them come. All right, so we're halfway through the scenario, and then this is where it gets real. They're going to attack from the northwest, the north, and the northeast. There's von Gilsa finally engaging scales. Just letting Brockenborough dry, and Davis is going to sit there. Doesn't want to get hit by artillery, but let me chill. And yep, now you can see this is why they're being conservative. Perrin's moving out. Yep, they're going to try to fold, but the way I've set this up, Culps Hill is fine. There's enough reserves there. I'm not worried at all. And I can do a fighting retreat down to Culps Hill. The worst that'll happen if I do is I will lose a single victory point, which won't be enough to knock me out of any sort of victory condition. It may not be like a major or epic victory, but as long as I don't completely collapse and let them down to Culps Hill and the Evergreen Cemetery, then I'll be fine. You can see there are lots of Confederates. So now I'm just going to be trading space for time. And they are pushing hard. Pettigrew's going to flank. He might try to go for the Bucktail Brigade. Or even go through, try to hit my artillery out in those orchards. Neither is a horrible idea, to be honest. But it is now happening. I think part of the reason the early afternoon wasn't so bad is the Confederates just didn't have enough men from the early morning scenario. I held too well. It was like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6,000 casualties. So maybe they just didn't have the pressure they wanted. But Perrin is breaking. I mean, he sat out there. You can see the different lines of dead gray soldiers represented on the field. Like, he took so much artillery fire that by the time he actually attacked and took some real volleys up close, a lot of his men were already over it. And Pettigrew, he's still going to flank, and now he has to hold double the space. But in the north, yeah, Cutler has to be very careful. Paul, I'm putting him in. That's my first reserve going in. I still have 3 units on Culps Hill. Wow, Stannard is taking forever to deploy. And von Gilsa is straight up losing that fight. That's not good. All right. Wilkerson, I don't know. He's in a decent position. I mean, he's across the river and he's artillery. Paul is going to have to hold against at least 3 brigades. He's in the town. It's not a bad defensive position. And, oh, Baxter's about to get hit with nearly 5,000 Confederates. I've got to pull back Cutler. So the fighting retreat has to start. Oh, I'm sad to move out the Iron Brigade. They were in such a good position. Yeah, you can see that's just a mess. And if I can get some fire in there, I just don't have many units. If I can get some fire in that melee, I mean, there's more Confederates than there are, even though, wow, look at Baxter's just counter roll down. This is crazy. Like, it's so relaxed in the morning. Stannard, go help von Gilsa. Look at that. Von Gilsa is getting shredded, and Stannard is not producing a lot of casualties, even though it's 2-on-1. That could go better. I'm not happy with that. So Smith is coming in to save Wilkerson. Paul is fighting on 2 sides, but in good cover in the city. And Baxter took like 200 or 300 losses, but didn't break. So I'm going to try to get the Iron Brigade real close here. Why won't you fire? Iron Brigade, come on. Baxter, I got to pull back. Iron Brigade, let's see if I can get a nice volley on lane here, because Baxter's taking pot shots. Come on, Iron Brigade. There. Oh, beautiful volley. What was that? Like 70 losses in one shot? Now they can hold against Daniel, and I don't know. There's a lot coming at me, but Paul and Cutler, I'm hoping in the city that they feel good about it, that they're not too worried, and that they will hang on. Daniel's going to come in, but if I can swing the Iron Brigade, I don't know if they have much to the northwest, so I should be able to deploy the Iron Brigade. And it looks like I missed Pettigrew charging right at one of my victory points. Woo! I mean, I had 2 brigades there, I had skirmishers there, I had some artillery. It definitely scared the skirmishers off, and the victory point, you can see, started getting a little lighter, started turning gray. But they just don't have the resources. Brockenborough is real rough, so Coster can deploy where I need him. Reynolds, oh man, come on. Don't let Reynolds just hold a victory point by himself. Hit Perrin, please. Don't let him get there. Perrin has retreated a couple times, so I'm hoping if he takes enough canister shot, he won't want anything to do with it. Paul is... Oh, the indicators aren't as good as this in this as Civil War. Paul's in the city. He might be taking some flanking fire, but he's actually giving it pretty well to O'Neill. I'm hanging on. It is 3:30 almost in game time. Come on, Stannard. You've got nearly double the men, Stannard. Nearly double. See, Confederates, look at that. They just shred Union units sometimes on these charges. And there's barely any von Gilsa left. I don't know. I did not think the Southwest would be where things would be looking like this. Von Gilsa must be one of my most damaged units. This is not good. Coster can hold, though. Reynolds. Oh, Reynolds. You've done so much for so long. You just kind of need to be a warm body. I don't like losing guns, but it is what it is. Smith is hanging on nicely. Confederates getting a bunch of artillery coming in, but the scenario is getting pretty late. And the way it works, if there is contention over a victory point, the game will actually go into overtime until it's resolved or until overtime runs out. But right now I'm looking, Perrin's too far away, Davis is too far away, and they're not going to make it to Culps Hill in time, even though down here they're definitely doing something on my flank. Yep, okay. So I definitely brought down First Corps. Your headquarters units will raise the morale and the condition of the men if they hang out near them. So if you have some units that are in a really bad spot that you cannot have break or you need them to recover after they've routed, bring a headquarters unit down and have them be where they're supposed to be. Like I talked about this in the last one, you really do have close to perfect information and very close to perfect control. You know, I've had units disobey me a couple times, but it's much better than it actually was. However, if you're really maximizing your unit's condition and morale, you should be moving your headquarters around. You shouldn't just let them sit. And sometimes I get in that habit. It is a big battlefield, and when you're controlling like 20,000 men in units of between 500 and 2,000, you can get distracted. Sometimes I get tunnel vision, especially in really important areas. And right here, the Confederates, I don't know. The AI is not really thinking like a person. I can tell what they're doing here. They are assuming because Cutler and Paul are taking a lot of casualties and Smith's taking a lot of casualties, and their brigades are bigger. They're doing like AI math that if they just sit there and trade shot for shot, eventually they will collapse the North. And they're right, but I think a human player would be a little more cognizant of the fact that it's almost the end of the scenario. Yeah, like Early's division is coming in, but what is Early going to be able to do? Now, if the Confederates had pushed harder and we went into overtime, I've had this scenario go really pear-shaped, and I've had to run all the way to Culps Hill because, like right here, the battle's delayed, but we're going to see how long. Oh, okay, 5 in-game minutes. That's not bad at all. Yeah, if you get a long overtime, then Jubal Early, he'll come in, and it's not good at all. And then you really do have to run back to Culps Hill. As it is, though, it's like 3 in-game minutes. I'm not concerned. It's just kind of minimizing casualties, making sure they don't get on a victory point. The game also randomizes, to some extent, when these units show up. So I've also had scenarios where Early will show up way earlier. But, you know, then you're in a fight too. But if not, Paul and Cutler, yep, they're fine. And epic victory. We have 2,300 losses. They had nearly 5,000. And look at some of these kill-death ratios, they look really good until I get to Von Gilsa. Like, Von Gilsa took more than double the losses. Somehow in that one-on-one fight, even though he outnumbered the Confederates, he just got shredded. But overall, I am very happy with how this went. And now it looks like the afternoon is going to be holding the town and trying to hold Culps Hill. We're going to get a lot of reinforcements, and so are they. So it's really going to be even. But if you look, they're going to make that push on Culps Hill, and they're going to try to push me out of the town. I probably am going to have to do the fighting withdrawal, and it's just going to be a continuation of the last scenario. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you're liking Wargame Wednesdays. I am recording on a new setup, so I'm going to try to clean up, like when I pan the camera around, make that a little smoother. But like it if you enjoy this sort of thing, and let me know in the comments what you want me to play or do in the future. And as always, stay excited about history.